Welcome you, Bhante, to our Pittsburgh Buddhist Vihara. It's a great privilege and honor to have you. Let us say sadhu 3 times to welcome you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We are going to start our annual meditation retreat, and this is one of the main events in our Pittsburgh Buddhist Center. This 2.5-day meditation retreat. And we wanted to give an opportunity to our friends who are coming to practice meditation on weekly basis and to have a more in-depth practice and also guidance from an experienced teacher. So that is the purpose of the meditation. Tomorrow there will be more people here. So we are so fortunate to have Bhante Yogavachara Rahula to come in to help us in this meditation retreat. And it is you may have known about him a little bit, but he has a very long spiritual journey, and that spiritual journey brought him to Sri Lanka, and he became a monk on the year that I was born. So you can understand his level of his experience, and then he since then he has been practicing meditation under the great masters in Sri Lanka, and he has a lot of experience in meditating in remote caves in Sri Lanka, and he spent many years in solitary retreats and also with other monks. And so I have really enjoyed learning of his experience on those caves by himself, his encounter with wild animals, in addition to other monks. And then, of course, after that, he has, after he returned to the US, he's a co-founder of Bhavana Society in West Virginia, and he served there more than 10 years as the vice abbot there. And
22
years. Yes. To form the Bhavana Society and guided so many retreats there and guided so many participants there. And right now he's leading and is a leading teacher at the Line of Wisdom Meditation Center. So the wealth of experience he had is unimaginable. I don't think that we'll get a meditation master who has such wealth of experience, his own personal experience with meditation. So we are so fortunate to have him today, and he's very humbly accepted our invitation. He has been coming to help us since the beginning of Pittsburgh Buddhist Center in Natrona Heights, and when I was just learning how to teach the Dhamma in English, and he used to come to conduct retreats in Pittsburgh Buddhist Center, and so I learned a lot of English words from him, how to teach the Dhamma. By listening to him attending his retreats. So I really treat him as one of my key teachers in my own meditation. So it's so nice to have him every year to have this meditation with you. So now I will respectfully invite Bhante to start your session.
Thank you for your kind words. So we're going to sort of officially start by observing the 8 lifetime precepts, chanting Namo Tassa, the 3 refuges, and the 8 precepts.
So there's a page inside in your folder, the chanting. So take out this, booklets, and then in the first page you will have the chanting.
Actually, so we're going to begin not at the top of that page, but with the Namo Tassa 3 times. So we can, I think most of you know how to chant that. So we'll chant that together. Then I'll be reciting line by line, like the refuges, Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Then you'll repeat that after, and then we'll go through the whole thing the second and third time. And then on the reciting the precepts, they're in English, so we'll have you can read those aloud. Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Recite those 8 precepts, read them in English. Try to do that together. If somebody maybe can lead them on that.
I undertake the precepts to abstain from killing. I undertake the precepts to abstain from stealing. I undertake the precepts to abstain from sensual misconduct. I undertake the precepts to abstain from false speech. I undertake the precepts to abstain from malicious speech. I undertake the precepts to abstain from harsh speech. I undertake the precepts to abstain from useless speech. I undertake the precepts to abstain from wrong livelihood and from intoxicating drinks and drugs, causing heedlessness.
See, I undertake this set of 8 precepts.
I undertake this set of 8 precepts.
And you can say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
And why do we chant, say sadhu after doing that? Because it's a word it's an auspicious word that basically means it's good. It's good. You did something good for your body and mind. So we don't always practice those precepts in our daily life, especially the ones of speech and so on. So in coming to a retreat, and you're coming to the temple, and then you're taking the refuges and precepts. that's something you're doing something good for your mind. So it's an acknowledgement. Okay, now how many people have not taken the refuges before? Just raise your hand if you hadn't taken the 3 refuges before. So I'm going to explain just briefly the meaning of taking refuge, because it could be explained in different ways. Now, in the Dhamma teachings, there are 2 levels of everything, basically. One is sort of the external level, and the other is the internal level. And that's the same thing for like suffering. There's external suffering, there's internal suffering, and so on. So taking refuge in the Buddha has 2 meanings. The external one is the, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha that lived and taught the Dhamma, where we all know that he passed away, attained Nibbana. So people ask, how can we take refuge in him? But it's the Dhamma that he taught that we're taking refuge in. But there's an internal Buddha, what you call the internal idea of taking refuge in the Buddha. Is the Buddha is simply called the Buddha because he had a certain kind of knowledge, the knowledge of awakening, the knowledge of enlightenment, the knowledge of the pure mind, the pure awareness, the liberated mind. So, and that's really basically the meaning of the word Buddha, means one who is awake. But he taught that all of us can become awake because we all have that essential nature within the mind. The deepest level of essence of the mind, you could say, is that the deathless element, the mind free from greed, hatred, and delusion. So even though you can't directly experience that right now, just acknowledging that's what sometimes we call the inner Buddha, that state of pure awareness. It's, deep down underneath all of our confused mind, our ego-driven mind, and, greed, hatred, and delusion is that ocean of pure awareness, of the liberated state. So that's what we're kind of taking refuge in, knowing that somewhere down in there, underneath all that sleepiness and confusion and greed and hatred, is this ocean of awareness. So that's what we're kind of acknowledging, that even if it's just an intellectual understanding at this point. So that can be a deeper meaning of taking refuge in the Buddha. If some people may not believe that the Buddha even existed. But anyway. And the Dhamma, of course, the Dhamma is the teachings of the Buddha. And of course, that you read in the sutras and other books, you're reading about Dhamma. But the Dhamma is also within our own mind. The Dhamma is basically the teachings about our mind, and the way to train our mind, and so on, train our body and our mind. And when you start to gain deeper levels of concentration and mindfulness, then you will start understanding some deeper meanings of what the Dhamma is on a psychological level, pure thoughts and so on, like that, the states of concentrated awareness. And then the Sangha are the people that are practicing the Dhamma. Now, usually it's regarded as being the monks and nuns who dedicated their life in teaching, but also it can mean lay people too that have dedicated their life to teaching and have gained some good benefits from that, people that you can learn from, get inspiration from. So it's the community of people practicing that we try to develop, friendships with, and to visit, and to get that kind of support. Like you're coming here to, this weekend. So this weekend you're taking refuge in the Sangha. Because maybe if you stayed at home in your own family situations, or alone in the apartment where you might not have discipline and you might not be able to do a retreat on your own. You come here to get that support of others. So just by default, just by the fact that you come here, you spend this weekend meditating, meaning it means that you're taking refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, whether you call it that or not. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that, especially for those who, may not have thoroughly understood the meaning of that. Some people come to the temple and they see people taking refuges, and they think they've got to sign. They're signing their soul away to something, and also, you read the 8, precepts, but actually the translation of the word is training rule. Precepts is an English translation of the word Sikha Padam, training. So there are training rules. We undertake the training rule to abstain from taking life, stealing, and so on, because our mind is untrained for a large part, especially in many people, right? They're trained to maybe, kill cockroach or kill insects or do other kind of harmful things, or they, in this society, telling lies and bad speech and slandering people. You can see that especially in political arenas, right? So we have to train our mind because we slip up. So that's why they're called training. Okay. Okay, friends. Now I want to give a little orientation about this retreat and some of the things we're going to be going over. And we have that daily schedule in here too.
Or the outside.
Hmm.
The second page. Outside. The other page. No, outside. Yeah. And the other page. Yes.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
You don't have it.
Don't have it? Where's that? That flyer about the retreat. The title of the retreat.
Inner peace through yoga.
What?
Inner peace through yoga and meditation.
You might have when he was introducing me, he said my name was Yoga Vachara Rahula. So you probably have not heard that term before, because probably there's no other Buddhist monk that has the term Yoga Vachara before it. And the reason for that is because one of my specialties, or what I'm, in my teaching, is to integrate certain practice of yogic breathing and integrated stretching, bending, and stretching movements to help get grounded and centered in the present moment and in the breathing and in the body, because that's really the starting point for any kind of deeper meditation, especially mindfulness meditation, which leads into gradually the vipassana aspect of meditation. So and there's a whole story behind how I got that name, but I won't bore you with those details. So as part of this retreat, we're going to be doing some breathing and stretching as a means of helping to initially bring the mind to become grounded and centered in the present, moment. And the body, the breathing in the body is really the only connection, direct connection that we have to the present moment. I'm going to be talk more about that later. So before most of the periods of sitting meditation, we're going to start, and including tonight, once we get to that point, we start with a session from the standing position of doing some of the deep, slow breathing and stretching, which I'll guide you through that, and then sit down for the sitting awareness. But I don't see the yoga and what normally people call meditation as being different or sitting meditation. It's about awareness. It's about present moment awareness, whether you're in a standing position, a sitting position, or walking, doing movements and so on. It's about learning how to keep remembering what the body is doing, feeling the sensations being generated either in your breathing or in the stretches. All that helps to keep the mind centered in the present moment. And the reason for that we'll be talking about as we go on as well. But basically, being centered in the present moment is really is a whole practice of meditation, you could say. And all of our problems in the world are problems because our mind is always going between the past and the future. Anything that you hear, see, smell, taste, feel, remember in your mind, the mind is automatically identifying and remembering what those experiences were in the past, and then projecting it into the future with either desire for more of that or fear of getting those things coming back to us. So almost the whole life is oriented in that. And with the thinking of the past and the future is what dredges up worry, fear, anxiety, more greed, more anger and hatred, because we're always remembering what people did to us or what certain objects did to us. And we're never really stopped in the present moment. Most people have no idea even what the present moment is. So in the meditation practice, in fact, the word meditation is very interesting. Now they say meditation, right? But that's an English word. So what is the word for meditation translated from Pali? We say suffering, and then we say, oh, dukkha. Yeah, that's suffering in Pali, right? Dukkha. Well, we say meditation in English. What is the Pali word? Well, it's bhavana. And the average person doesn't know what bhavana is, right? But anyway, for some reason, whoever started translating Pali words into English, they chose the word meditation. And why is that? It's very important. Well, it starts with M-E-D-I, right? The prefix M-E-D-I. So what other words start with M-E-D-I? Medicine. Another one? Mediation. Media. A medium. So what do all those words have in common? Why do they start with M-E-D-I? Because it denotes or implies something being in the middle between opposites. So medicine is a bridge between sickness and health, right? If you're sick, you take some medicine, hope you're going to get better. What does a mediator do? He sits between arguing people trying to resolve their differences. What does the media do? Well, we don't know what they're doing these days, but it used to be they're trying to flesh out the truth, right? Or in the middle between, trying to figure out who's lying and who's telling the truth. or the facts. And what does a medium do? Communicates between spirits and the living, right? So then what does meditation do? What is meditation sitting in the middle of? Yeah, I mentioned it. The past and the future. So when we meditate, whatever you're using for an object of meditation, you're thinking about it or focusing on it in the present moment. You're not thinking about today or yesterday or anything else. And even if you're practicing metta, reciting "May all beings be well and happy," you're doing that in the present moment. Or if you're watching your breath go in and out, or doing any kind of body movement, you're just remembering that present moment. Breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting, breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting. Just remembering the present moment. And if you can do that long enough, the mind will eventually let go of the past and the future and come to just rest in the present moment. And that's really, we'll talk more about that later. But anyway, so that's just kind of just an introduction to that. And the practice of mindfulness means to remember, but specifically to remember the present moment. And specifically to remember, what is this body and mind doing right now? So right now, what is your body doing? It's sitting, right? Now, it might be doing other things. Your breath is going in and out. Your heart is beating. Your blood is circulating. But what I call ground zero to the present moment, right? Ground zero to the present moment is this breathing body. Because everything happens in and through this breathing body. The whole world is experienced through this breathing body. And so that's why I call it ground zero. So when you focus and just keep remembering sitting, breathing, if you're able to do that for 5 minutes without any interrupting thoughts coming through your mind, or without getting distracted by pains, or without going to sleep, you would enter the first jhana easily, or maybe even the deeper ones. Or you would enter into a very, deep state of concentration just by doing that. But the problem is, even though it sounds simple, it's not. And so is there anybody here that's kind of brand new to meditation? Everybody must have done some bit of meditation. Okay. So anyway, the three biggest obstacles that block the ability to develop mindfulness and concentration are sleepiness, pain, and incessant thinking. Now, of course, in the traditional text, the Buddha mentioned 5 hindrances, but 3 or 4 of them are just different types of thinking. Doubts, greed, hatred, these are just various types of thinking. So they're lumped into one. Now, pain is not mentioned in the traditional 5 hindrances, but it's one of the biggest hindrances people have. How many people get disturbed by the pain sometimes? Can consume your total mind, right? If the body's racked with pain. So it's a bigger hindrance than even doubts or restlessness. On a very practical level, on a gut level. So anyway, that's why I mentioned these 3 main ones: sleepiness, pain, and thoughts. Now, sleepiness is the worst, because when you start to nod out like that, basically you become dead to the world, and your meditation completely stops. So overcoming sleepiness takes time, but we have to understand what are the things that contribute to becoming sleepy. There's lots of different things that might induce that. And if you're not very sleepy, then you'll be more awake. Then you'll feel more pain. If you're a lot of pain, it's nice to go to sleep because then you don't feel the pain so much. But when you're fully awake, then you're going to feel more and more pains. And then, the mind starts to worry about it. Oh, is it going to happen? What's that? And, then spin out in thoughts. So, and if there's not too many pains and you're not too sleepy, then the mind can just get carried away in incessant types of thinking, which includes worrying, the whole gamut of emotional thoughts, remembering, greed, anger, So those three hindrances, sleepiness, pain, and what you could call monkey mind. The mind just jumping from thought to thought, any little thing that comes in, you get distracted and run with it. You hear a sound, you start thinking about something else. You get a pain over here, you start thinking about that, and you remember somebody who insulted you last week, and you start, the mind is constantly, moving like that because it has no anchor. It has no anchor. So the breathing body is the anchor to the present moment, like the anchor of a ship. Now, if your body doesn't have much, it's not just the body, but it's the sensations in the body, the aliveness of the body, and not just painful sensations. There's a lot of pleasant sensations in the body, or neutral sensations that you can learn to just feel and watch, and it helps. It becomes very interesting. So it's the sensations in the body, which include the breathing, that help to keep the mind awake, and also helps you to observe things with kind of a detachment or onlooking awareness. And when you're able to then be grounded in the body and feeling more sensations, and you're able to just sort of watch the body sitting, breathing, then when a thought comes up, you'll be able to see it more clearly and be aware, thoughts are arising now. Or this kind of a thought is arising now. That kind of a thought is arising now. And kind of just watch it without being sucked into it and dragged away by it into, further types of things. So, and all that comes from being grounded and centered in the body. And that's, that's what the Buddha taught in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. That's the first stage of mindfulness, is being grounded and centered in the body, which includes the breathing. Starts with the breathing, but then goes to the postures, goes to the movements, and so on. So that's kind of where, the focus of what we're going to be doing in this retreat. And the yoga exercise will helps to weaken those 3 hindrances that I was talking about. So most people don't have much feeling in it. The only time people feel their body is when they're having some erotic thoughts, maybe, or basically when they get a pain, right? Cut your finger, or you stub your toe, or some other kind of pains. But most people, otherwise they're lost in their thoughts and they don't have a lot of feeling, or their circulation is so poor that their body is half starved of oxygen. And the body lives off of oxygen. And there's billions of cells, even they're saying now trillions of cells in this body. And they all require oxygen in order to vibrate and to interact and to do their thing, what they've been made to do. But because most people have very shallow breathing, and also their bodies are stiff, they're not flexible. And the life force, or the body's electricity, the natural electricity of the body, is not flowing properly because of the stiffness or the tight, the stiff joints and the dense muscle tissue. It can't really penetrate all the nooks and crannies of the body and nervous system. And so the energy gets blocked. Most pain is blocked energy. And a lot of it comes from the posture, especially in sitting. That after most people can't sit straight because gravity is always pulling down. And so they wind up slouching like this. And that puts a lot of extra weight and downward pressure on your joints, shoulders. Also, it constricts your chest so you can't breathe deeply. And the downward weight on the hips and knees, all that creates discomfort. But it's because we most people cannot sit straight for very long. And the reason why is because they haven't exercised those joints and bones associated with the meditation posture. And also we have this big head, right? It weighs 5 or 10 pounds, depending on how much brains and hair and gold crowns and braces you have in your mouth. But anyway, it's quite heavy. And it's resting on a neck vertebrae about the size of a quarter. And the first thing that happens when you meditate, or try to meditate, is gravity grabs the chin and starts pulling it down. But we don't even know it. It's very subtle. Because we're not attentive to the body, we don't even know it. And before long, we're sitting like that, and oh my gosh, and you're half asleep. And when the chin goes down, it causes the shoulders to kind of cave inward and the spine to slouch. And so you wind up, kind of going like that. And if you don't have attention to the body, you won't notice it until, I got a pain here. Or you're half asleep. So that's why posture is very important in the meditation, to keep the spinal column straight. Now, meditation happens between your brain and the spinal cord, because that's where life takes place. That means through the spinal cord, which the whole nervous system is connected on the right and left sides of the spinal column, which connect to every part of the body. And so the world comes through whatever you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, feeling in the body, and even what you're remembering in your mind. Basically is, at least those 5 senses are coming through the senses, relaying through the nervous system and get to the brain where you have cognition. So if you're slouching, those impulses, get delayed, or you don't hear them clearly. And that's why we wind up getting carried away in our thoughts, or we're kind of half asleep. So when you keep the chin lifted up and sitting straight, then that circulation will be in an optimal level, and you'll have more feeling. And then doing deep breathing. So again, one of the things that connected with the kind of yoga and the stretching that I do is called deep breathing. Deep breathing? They didn't teach that. Buddha didn't teach that. And most people will say that, right? Because if you go to every meditation class, they say, don't control the breath. Don't control the breath. Don't control the breath. How many people have heard that? Only one? Two? I saw one hand. So why would they say don't control the breath? Well, there's a reason for that. But that's an advanced technique. When you're already awake and alert, and have the benefits of already being awake and alert, then you don't need to do deep breathing. But the deep breathing in the beginning will help to oxygenate the blood, because again, it's the oxygen that is carried out to all the cells of the body that charges them up. But most people only breathe 1/10 of the lung capacity in normal breathing. And the body in nature made the body a certain size, made every organ a perfect size for the size of the body, right? For a reason. So the lungs were made a certain size to use. But any doctor will say that people don't use their lungs much unless they're doing heavy exertion or so. But the average person in the day-to-day life, they breathe very shallow. And so if you come to meditation and you have a very shallow breath, before long, or where's the breath? I can't feel it. Can't feel it. It's so shallow that it's not very strong. So if the sensation of the breathing is not strong, the mind will just get carried away in other types of entertaining thoughts. So you have to give the mind something to sink its teeth into, so to speak. So by purposely doing deep, slow breathing, it helps to accomplish several things. It helps to bring in much more oxygen, and then also to hold the breath in the lungs for a couple of seconds. Because most people never hold their breath in. Even doctors don't hardly even tell you that. So there's not enough time for all the oxygen that you breathe in to get out to all the cells, and you wind up wasting a lot of air. So by holding in the breath a couple of seconds, it gives enough time for that increased breath to get out and to charge up the cells of the body that you can actually feel if you're well focused. Anyway, so this is just some idea behind that. So by doing some deliberate, deep, slow breathing, it helps to imprint the feeling of the breath in the mind. It helps to oxygenate the blood, and it helps you to sit straight, because it's impossible to breathe deep, slow breath sitting like this. You have to be sitting straight. So it helps you to sit straight. Therefore, you can breathe in more air. You can feel more alive. And then you'll start feeling more vibrations in the body because of the billions of cells that are vibrating all over. You start to feel that. And then combine that with some stretches, you get a double whammy effect. But even just doing the breath by itself, you still get that.
You count inhalation, exhalation, like 3 or 4 seconds, or
You can, yes, as a training.
okay.
For training, yes, you can do that. Because our breathing is untrained for the most part, and most people can't take a deep breath. Because they're just the habit of just take 1 second or a half a second is very short and shallow. But to take like to take 4 to 6 seconds just to breathe in, like just listen to my breathing for a second. Okay. So I'm going to start it in breath. Hold the breath. Oh, could you hear that? So that's what I call a deep, slow breath. So it's basically taking about 6 seconds just to breathe in, holding the air in for 2 or 3, taking 5 or 6 seconds to breathe out, pausing for a couple of seconds, crunch some numbers. How many seconds total for one breath? Okay, 15 divided into 60 is how many? So I've gone from the normal 10 to 15 breaths a minute down to just 4 breaths a minute. So that has a dramatic effect on the blood-brain chemistry in the brain and nervous system if you continue it for at least, let's say 5 minutes or so. And you can't think about anything else when you're doing that because it takes all of your effort. And because it feels so good, you want to do it. At least after you've done it a few times. Maybe in the beginning it might feel a little bit strange or a strain, but the body will, gradually respond. But anyway, so that's just an idea of, what I mean, deep, slow breathing, that you can't really think while you're doing that because it takes all of your effort. Plus you're getting all that extra oxygen into the system. So it has all those benefits. It'll help you to stay more awake in the meditation, and it will generate lots of more subtler sensations that then you can use as a focus of your concentration. And it will help the mind be more become more centered in the present moment. So all these things combined, this is sort of like the the body of the practice, especially in the beginning. So does anybody have any questions about any of that, what I mentioned so far? So have you all seen the schedule? So now most of you, I guess, are going home tonight, right? Or going somewhere to sleep. And then it begins at 9 in the morning, right? So then we come in the morning, we're going to start with we're going to do it tonight too in a few minutes. We're going to then begin do a little bit yoga session and a meditation. And then we'll be doing that in the morning too. And then practicing sitting, standing, walking until about the lunchtime. Or I'll be giving some more because there's going to be some other people coming in tomorrow, right? So I might have to review a few points that we discussed. And then I think you all have a schedule, so you can see the schedule. Okay. How many of you were not here last year when I came here in September last year? We're not here. So about half, it seems. Or have not attended any retreat with me before in some other place. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stand up. try to just spread out a little bit so you have a few feet between each person. Is this being broadcast over Zoom? Is it being broadcast?
Talk was broadcast. Yeah.
No. So I don't need to say. Okay, so it's best to stand on not to stand on the mat like that.